Hey guys, I want to do a quick video on something I've been thinking about actually really recently, and it's called IIFYM, abuse to overuse. It's something I'll be speaking about in my book, but I wanted to quickly go over that and elaborate on what I meant. So IIFYM is obviously really great for a lot of people. It's liberating for a lot of people who come from a place of clean eating, and they can finally get away from being restrictive and eat foods they enjoy and realize that they can reach their goals by having a really good flexible diet. Um, but IFYM has, for a lot of people also been abused. People would fill their macros with all sorts of shit and like Pop Tarts and donuts, and maybe that might be all of it, or a bulk of where the food is coming from. But a lot of people don't do that anymore, really. We eat donuts. I do too, every now and then, whatever. So, you know, people still eat healthy and their vegetables and all that. Great. So it's not about abusing anymore. It's about overusing. And that's really the focus here, is how people see, every food as a number. Every crumb they put in their mouth, they associate it with a number. And that's the problem really now, I'm seeing. And it's only a problem if you can't make that flip of the switch, right? If you're going to track macros because you have a contest or whatever, fine, great. And you're dieting, great, do that. But if you can't turn that switch and stop tracking and just go into intuitive eating and not look at food as numbers, then you're screwed. And I think that's where a lot of people are heading right now, unfortunately. The reason for overuse is probably because we have this fear that we can't trust our mind in our own judgment. We fear of losing that precious image we created after dieting for so long. But once you realize that all is not lost, and your body is not going to be destroyed, you can segue into intuitive eating. But if you can't change that mindset, you can't change your behavior. And really, that's the root of the problem. Now, the thing is, when people try to adopt intuitive eating and get away from IIFYM, they have what I call a cognitive roadblock. So you try to consciously avoid looking at food as numbers, but you can't get away from it. You eat this piece of cake and you're like, oh shit, that's 12 grams of fat. That's, 32 grams of carbs and blah, blah, blah. And if you can't get this mental macro shutdown, as I call it too, you're still practicing IIFYM and you're still not adopting intuitive eating. So what once becomes incredibly liberating for a lot of people to count macros and eat a lot of different foods suddenly becomes restrictive, because now you think, okay, well, I already filled my macros for the day. I'm not eating this food even though I'm out with other people. And it's a big problem, right? So it takes practice, really. No one can really teach you how to do this. You have to just, try it on your own and obey your hunger cues and eat whole foods. And I promise, if you can do this over time, slowly you'll understand and you'll be just fine. So IFYM really, it inhibits intuitive eating, right? So, you're not eating when you're hungry. You might eat a small meal with certain macros, and then you stop eating because it disrupts your meal patterns. Or you eat one large meal at one particular time. You ignore your hunger cues and you refuse to eat something later because you fit your macros for the day, as I mentioned. And this carries over to social events, right? As we know, people might, put food in your face and you refuse to eat it because you don't know what the macros are. Or you go eat something and you guess later what the macros are for that meal. Again, coming back to the cognitive roadblock I mentioned. You try to guess what the macros are. Even if you don't want to, you're still thinking about it, right? And you stress out about it later and you think, oh shit, I probably overate. And then you try to eat less the next day to compensate for it or something like that. Again, another problem with IFYM. and I think it's incredibly prevalent. Um, so IIFYM, is great, really, at certain times, but it's not at others, and I think it's becoming more of a problem. It makes you think that if you're over 5 grams of carbs, you're doomed. When in reality, it's not that simple. Your body is in constant flux, and it's never following specific numbers. Your body doesn't know what numbers are, doesn't know what rep ranges are, doesn't know what weights are, doesn't know what calories are, right? So really, again, it comes down to your own self-perception and introspection and figuring out what your priorities are, because once you can figure that out and learn not to give a shit about your body, having abs all the time and an ass and all that, and having, a thigh gap, whatever, um, you'll understand. Okay? So that's all. Thanks for watching.